Hey, welcome back, Knicks fans and NBA fans. Today we're going to do something a little different. You guys know I like to play around with the statistics a little bit, and so we're going to see how good it is at predicting who wins ball games. As you guys know, if you looked at the last video, I basically use there's a stat that I'm calling PIE with a defensive factor, and it's pretty much the regular way the NBA calculates the PIE, but I also add some defensive stats to it. And I made sure I tested it to make sure like it was a meaningful stat that it does have an impact on the team's ability to win ball games, and it does. And I use that stat to basically power rank to rank the teams, right? And obviously whichever team has the highest PIE with a DFAC, that's the best team in the league, and that's the team that's most likely to win any matchup, right? That they come up against. And so today, actually, we're going to look at a specific matchup, actually two specific matchups. Like tonight, we have Chicago playing the Miami Heat tonight, and pretty much I'm not going to beat around the bush on it. Based on these stats here, obviously Chicago Bulls been on a tear second half of the season after the All Star break. They won about 63% of their games since the All Star break, and so their power rank. If you basically isolate the stats since the All Star break, they're basically been the fourth best team according to this power ranking that I have here. And so their score for the PIE with a defect is 3.91. And the Miami Heat, they've been struggling the whole season. Their defense isn't very good, and they have a very anemic offense. And of course, and it's reflected here with this PIE with a defense with a defect. Their score is 2.93. I mean, that's like a whole percentage point. Chicago's a whole percentage point better than the Miami Heat. Now, this is going to be better. This stat is much better on in a series. However, today it's like basically winner. It's basically a one game match, right? Whoever loses go home, and so things can happen. So there is a possibility the Miami Heat's like they gonna basically Hero and all those guys catch fire and just basically burn these guys out of burn the Bulls out of the playoffs hunt. And so that's possible. However, it's unlikely according to these stats. And so, and it's not even like even if you look at Miami Heat's their performance throughout the whole season and you rank it, they're still towards the bottom of the league. And so here they are here with the full season stats there, 29. They're at 3.09, which is a little better. But then if you look for the Chicago Bulls, where are these Chicago Bulls at? Oh, they were ranked 11. They're at 3.49. So even if you took the full season stats to see and power rank them to see who was a better team, still Chicago. So I'm going to say it's more likely Chicago wins this matchup. And we're going to talk just real briefly about the reason why. Chicago is a better team than the Heat. Now, a lot of times when you're looking at basically what team, who's the better team, for me, the most important stats are basically your field goal percentage, the opponent's field goal percentage, your ability to keep the opponent off the offensive glass. So your ability to close out a defensive possession by securing a defensive rebound. And so that's what I want to look at here for these two teams real quick. As you see, basically the league average field goal average is about almost 48%. That's what the league average for shooting is. Chicago is basically at 50, almost at 51. Miami Heat is below average. They're slightly below average. Like I said, the league average is almost 48%. Miami Heat is like 47.4%. So obviously Chicago has the edge there. So clearly Miami is basically their offense is just not there yet, and it's slightly below league average. The next thing obviously you want to keep an eye on is the team's ability to basically keep uh, well, something else that can actually impact your ability to win is like, can you get additional second chance points? Offensive rebounds, in my opinion, doesn't really contribute majorly too much to it, but you want to kind of see what your ability to get second chance points are, because if it's the league average is about 10.39. Now, if they're um, average offensive rebound was well above league average for any one of these guys, then you can suggest, okay, maybe, or let's say if Miami was well above league average, I mean, then maybe you can think like there's a possibility that if Miami can basically upset the Bulls if they basically do a much better job on an offensive glass. And same thing, look at the defensive rebound for these two players. I mean, these two teams. The league average for defensive rebounds is about 32, basically 33. Is about 33 rebounds per game, and these guys are are basically below that average. Chicago is closer to that average, but Miami's well below the average, and so it's going to be really interesting. This is going to be an interesting matchup. However, although everyone thinks Miami is the better team, Chicago is a much better team, and they've been the much better team not just all year, but also especially the second half of the season. Let's take a quick look at the opponent field goal percentage. So, like I said, the league average is about almost 48% from the field in terms of shooting. And this is opponent field goal percentage. So the Miami Heat allows 40, almost 50% from the field. That's well above league average, right? So that's definitely not a good thing. That's basically almost as they have average about they're letting up about they're 2 percentage points worse than the league average. And as you see here, Chicago Bulls, their opposing field goal percentage is lower than the league average. So according to these stats, um, there's no way the Miami Heat. Well, I shouldn't say there's no way, but uh, it's more likely Chicago Bulls win this game tonight against the Miami Heat. And so that's pretty much it for that game. Now, the next game I wanted to take a look at um, was basically the OKC Thunder and Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, this one is a little more difficult to figure out who's going to win this one because um, if you look at these stats alone, Minnesota Timberwolves is a slightly better team than OKC according to the stats, especially according to this power ranking. Their PIE with a DFAC is 3.25 and OKC is 3.02. And so if you look at both teams, Minnesota actually won only 44% of their games. Um, Actually, this I should basically say one thing. This is not all the games after the All Star break. I think this was actually. I think I stopped about a week or 2 weeks before the season was over, and most of the reason was because a lot of the stats. I didn't want basically the stats from towards the end of the season, especially the meaningless games, to skew like the numbers and to skew these the numbers. So just want to put that out there. But however, let's get back into this matchup: Minnesota versus the Thunder. According to these, Minnesota is supposed to be the better team, but the reason why Minnesota is a better team is because of their effort on the defensive end. They're a much better team on the defensive end because of Rudy Gobert. As you guys know, Rudy Gobert is not playing tonight. As I said, the Minnesota Timberwolves are without Rudy Gobert. They may be without Rudy Gobert this game. Um, I'm not sure what the latest news is, but if Rudy Gobert plays this game, then there's a good chance Minnesota Timberwolves wins the game because they're just a better team with Rudy Gobert on the floor, especially on the defensive end. And so that's pretty much what I'll have to say. I'm not going to say that OKC wins this game when Rudy Gobert is not on the floor because I just don't know what the statistics would look like um, for Minnesota without Rudy Gobert on the floor. I did not basically look at all the games that they played without Gobert this year to kind of look at their stats and test it um, to see what the impact was. So it's hard. It's going to be a very hard one to predict. Even if Rudy Gobert is on the floor, it's still going to be basically, according to the stats, it's still going to be a very tight game. And but if he plays, as I said, is going to be I'm giving a slight edge over the Minnesota Timberwolves. And let's look at the reason why they're better. So if we look at we look at the field goal percentage for the league, almost 48%. Minnesota Timberwolves are slightly above, and OKC is way below. the field goal, way below league average, like way below. So it's almost 4 percentage points. So that's not very good. And then next thing we want to look at is the rebounding. How the I'm sorry, we want to look at the defensive rebounding. League average is 32.9. OKC is at almost 32, and Minnesota is a better defensive rebounding team. And so, from there, Minnesota also has the edge over OKC. And we're going to leave the turnovers. I don't think they're not, for me, we're going to leave it because I'm not sure how it impacts the game. Obviously, we know the more turnovers a team has, the less likely they are to win a ball game because it gives the other team more opportunities. However, it's not always that simple. But we do want to look at the opposition field goal percentage. And so, like we said, the league averages about 48% from the field. And their defense, the OKC Thunder's defensive field goal is slightly above league average, which is not good. This needs to be below league average. And if you look at the Timberwolves, their defensive field goal percentage is slightly below the league average. And so there's what you have, it, guys. So basically, the call is for the games tonight. I'm going to pick Minnesota over OKC in this game, but it's a slight edge, and that's especially if Rudy Gobert plays. And then this one is a little more easier for me to be confident and to try to predict. I'm taking Chicago Bulls over the Miami Heat in this game. And so that's pretty much what I have. If you guys like this video, please make sure you like and subscribe, hit a thumbs up, give, make a comment below, ask any questions. I'll be more than happy to respond. Thank you so much. Have a good night.